This is an interview series called The Tradeoff, where we explore big financial decisions. In this episode, I discuss remodeling projects with Carina Coel of Restructure Studio in Austin, Texas. Her team focuses on residential architectural design. If you are contemplating a remodel, you will enjoy this one. So, of course, when we talk about trade-offs, I can't imagine a more dramatic feeling of dealing with trade-offs than doing a remodel, which is something I'm in the process of thinking about myself.
Sure.
It's trade-offs absolutely everywhere, and in all kinds. So much to talk about today, but I thought where I would start is a little bit about particularly in Austin. We're technically we're in a recession,
Yes.
according to GDP. But if you look at certain things going on in this town in particular, you would never know it. And one of those areas is this crazy demand for construction and remodeling. Are you seeing that too?
Yes, for sure, Kevin. When the pandemic hit, I was kind of prepared for, what's going to happen. Our project's going to dry up? Are people going to go on hold because they're unsure of what's coming in the future? But, I guess fortunately for me, since I focus on residential work, we have seen more work come in this summer than I think we ever have before. We are so busy, and it's mostly remodels and additions like you're talking about, but new construction as well. We're seeing a ton of requests for people who maybe own a property and want to tear down and start over, or just purchase a property and want to build a new home.
Why do you think that is? I've got one theory, which is people are sitting around at their houses and they're staring at the cabinets that they've come to hate and the countertops and everything. And they're going, if I'm going to be stuck here for the indefinite future, I got to do something about this. That's got to be at least part of it, right?
Yeah, I think it's a couple things, honestly. So definitely that we're all stuck at home. Many of us are stuck at home with kids. I am recording this from my office today, but I've only just recently started coming back in the last couple of weeks, primarily because, we've got two kids at home doing Zoom school right now. And my husband works from home as well right now. And we just didn't have the capacity. And I think a lot of people are dealing with that in their own homes. They are trying to find ways to make everything work with everyone working from and schooling from home right now. So I do think that everyone is looking around, how can we improve our homes and make them better, is certainly a big factor. And then the other one, which I'm sure that you're aware of too, is that the interest rates are so low right now for loans. And so everyone is going to get loans to be able to work on their homes.
One other factor I'll just add to that is because home prices have increased so much around Austin,
Yes,
people now have a lot of home equity. And in combination with low interest rates,
that's a great point.
that makes it more feasible. And the other thing is, I'm experiencing that in my kind of north centrally neighborhood.
Uh-huh.
I don't think I could afford to buy a new house here in my own neighborhood.
Yeah.
Remodeling seems like it might be a better idea.
Yeah, I think you're completely right. I've had so many clients do that. In fact, several that I'm interviewing right now with, the home that they live in, they've been there for a while. They really love it, but they'll find that there's something wrong. Like, they have cast iron pipes and the pipes are failing, and they need to do a major overhaul on their plumbing. And if they're ripping up the foundation anyways, should we be thinking about other stuff? They go and check the market to say, okay, is it worth it to do all this work on this home? I love the neighborhood. They go look around, and they can't really afford to get that same level of house, at anywhere close to an affordable price right now.
How is all this demand affecting timelines for completion and costs, just generally?
Sure. Another great question there. So yeah, I'll break it down into both of those parts. Timelines. That is definitely, there's so much demand right now in Austin that it really is important, if you are thinking about doing a remodel, to start talking to your team early. I have fortunately, most of the people that I work with are somewhat educated on how long things take in Austin. But a lot of the contractors that I like to work with are telling me, oh, I'm pretty much full through next quarter, to start a project, not just have it done, but start a project, first quarter of next year. So they're already looking at lining up projects to start construction, May, June, July of 2021. So there's definitely a backlog in terms of being able to even get a contractor to come look at your project and help you build it. So certainly if you're thinking about it, start talking to people sooner rather than later, because just to get on their radar, because you never know, projects stop and start, and our financing, might get held up, or a permit might take longer. So they might have to shuffle their projects and they could get you in sooner. But it is helpful to talk to your team early on in the process if you can. And then the second part of your question, you were asking about cost, is that right? Yeah. That is another huge thing that we have seen, even just the last, I would say, month to 4 to 6 weeks. There is a huge supply and demand issue right now with construction, because so many people are rebuilding their homes or building new homes because of the low interest rates. It's not just Austin, but I've heard across the country, particularly with, in my experience, most of the homes in Austin are built with wood framing. So that's the material that I've seen. There's a huge lumber shortage across the country, which apparently has been described to me by different contractors that I work with as kind of this perfect storm where, we have the pandemic. So there were some lumber mills that shut down earlier in the year, and they still haven't caught back up with their with the demand, or they'll have an outbreak at the mill. They'll have to shut down for a couple of weeks while everything gets clean, and then they can come back. We've got the West Coast fires, impacting lumber availability. And then we also have, just political trade wars, tariffs, that kind of stuff that also impacts it. And so according to some estimates, there's been up to or over 100% increase in the cost of lumber since the beginning of the year, which is insane. It's crazy right now. So hopefully all that will level out here soon, but that is something to keep in mind. But as we talked about before, right now it takes a while just to get ready to build. You have to find an architect, hopefully, to help you plan out what you're doing and get on their schedule, and also get on a contractor's schedule. So we have, if you're just starting the process now, there is time to, let some of that supply and demand maybe settle out a little bit.
Something I learned from you early on, and even just thinking about this for my own house, that I didn't give enough consideration. So glad you pointed these things out, that learning what's possible to build on your property given constraints.
Sure.
Is, I think, a necessary first step to go through. Do you want to just kind of run down some of those constraints on building that people should be aware of?
Oh yeah, sure, no problem. Yeah, especially in Austin, the city, has a lot of regulation around construction, which I believe is with good intent, but it can kind of get complicated. So yeah, one of the first things that you want to do when you're looking at your property is to look at how big your lot is, how big your property is, because a lot of the calculations that we would run initially are based off of the square footage. So for example, anywhere in Austin, you're limited to a certain amount of impervious cover, which is how much of your property is covered with things that do not allow water to be absorbed. So like the footprint of your house, for example, but also if you have, your driveway counts towards that. If you have any flat work, like a covered porch or patio, or even a uncovered concrete patio, all that counts. So we would look at that. Also, trees are huge in Austin. You've got to think about if you have any protected trees on your property, which would be a tree that's 19 inches in diameter or bigger. Those you can get permits to have them removed if you needed to, but it's much more difficult. And so you got to take a look at what trees are on your property, how big they are, where they are, even your neighbor's property. If there's a really big protected tree on your neighbor's, it's on your neighbor's lot, but it's right next to yours, the city will care because the roots go underneath your fence line. So yeah, there's a lot of different factors to think about. And something that we talked about even on your own property are deed restrictions. That's another thing that, the city doesn't necessarily enforce, but your neighbors can. And so there's many aspects to kind of think about what can I work with. Another one that people don't think about too is Austin Energy's become pretty vigilant lately about power lines, which is important. You want to stay away from the power lines, but it's not just enough to know, like a lot of times the surveyor will show a power line going across, just as one line on your survey, but they have these big T-poles where the lines can come out as much as 4 feet off of that center line that you have drawn on your survey. And we've learned the hard way on that, where you have to make sure, luckily it's before anything got built. We just had to, rework some stuff on paper, but you need to make sure that you're a certain distance from the closest power line, which, you need to see. Anyways, those are all things that we kind of look at the very beginning, the site analysis part of the project.
Super important to know before you get carried away.
Yes.
I'm curious, what features of remodels do you think reliably add the most value?
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's a great question. It's kind of the big stuff that you would talk about with your realtor also, if you're going to go sell your house. Kitchens obviously are huge. Everybody wants a nice kitchen now. And of course, it's the parts of the house that are the most expensive to fix up as well. Bathrooms, like the master suite, if you have a nice master suite that has a nice bathroom that's been updated. Decent sized storage, especially, there's a lot of older homes in Austin that don't have big closets. So if you're remodeling and you can increase your storage capacity in some way, then that is also very helpful. That's something that everyone's looking for right now. Those are the big ones that come to mind. Also, I really think that, obviously the street presence of your house, like the front facade, but also the indoor outdoor living space. That's something that almost all of my clients ask for, is how can we have a nice connection to our yard, especially the backyard? Can we open up, more windows or more access to the yard space? So
I wanted to ask you about trends in design styles that seem to be popular and catching on in Austin. That you kind of started into that. I'm curious what your thoughts are in that area.
Yeah, there's Austin's great because there's a lot going on here. There's a ton of great design in Austin. We're really fortunate to be in a city that's really design savvy and design focused. Most of the work that we do, it's so funny. I don't even know if we have a name for it. It's at one point we started calling it like Hill Country Vernacular. It's really, the clients that I work with are usually looking for, something that's not super contemporary, but not traditional either. Has a lot of use of like natural materials like stone, concrete, wood, steel, something like that. Very clean. That sort of thing. Certainly in Austin, you can go very contemporary. There's some really nice examples of contemporary architecture here. We do get some requests for like that mid-century modern vibe too. That's very popular. So we'll dive into that as well. We in Central Austin, we don't do a lot of super traditional homes, but there certainly is a place for that as well, especially because there are some historical parts of the city too, where, I think the biggest thing maybe is people really want to feel like it fits within the context of their neighborhood, and so even if they want to go a little bit in the direction of mid-century modern or a little bit more, contemporary, they still want it to feel like it's a part of the neighborhood. So which I think is really great that people here are paying attention to the context where they're building.
I'm sure that you run into differences of opinion amongst your clients on these things. For example, our neighbors are building this beautiful mid-century modern style house.
Yes.
And I was commenting on how I think that's really cool. I like that. And my wife basically said, we're never doing that. She likes it too. It's nice. It's really nice, but it's not her preference.
Sure.
So is that something, I just wonder in terms of design, can you really reconcile on design preferences and like, can't really have halfway modern and then halfway traditional, can you?
Right. Right. I think that's such a great point. And that's actually one of the reasons why I love being a residential architect, because you do get into that sort of stuff with your clients. And there's always compromise on any project, at least if there's more than one opinion, being considered for that project. Then, and most of the time I am working with families or couples. And so, I've seen very few, unfortunate times where they can't resolve their design differences. But for the most part, everybody, is willing to come together. And it's hard because there's compromise in terms of the actual just design style, but also, just the features that are important to everyone will come up. Like, you're investing your money in this project. So one partner might be really obsessed with this one amazing light fixture that's really expensive, and the other partner's like, it's not worth spending that much money on that one thing. And so you always have to come to the table and be willing to kind of listen to your partner. And that's what it's so funny. My husband's actually a therapist, and so we joke all the time that we need to set up offices next door to each other, so that when I have some clients who just really can't figure out what they want, how they want their master bathroom to work, I can send them next door and they can go work it out and then come back. But really it's it's something that we do work with a lot. And that's one of the things that I really try to do as well, is I really try to listen to my clients. I think it's super important. It is an investment. I think it's a good investment, but it's sometimes something that they'll spend more money on than almost anything else in their lives. And we want to make sure that they're getting what they want. And so it's important to be able to listen to everybody involved. And yeah, sometimes we have to have these conversations where, we have to come together and really figure out how to make it happen. So
I'm curious, what are the major issues that kind of go wrong that you see, that if you could share, then maybe we could all prevent these things from going wrong? What comes to mind?
You mean just in terms of like design, or
yeah, like the project not turning out the way people hoped, and
okay. Yeah.
People just generally not being happy with it.
Right. Yes, I think the projects that are my most successful are the ones where the clients are really involved. Like, the more client involvement we have in our projects, the more successful they are, because to your point, Kevin, like, then they really do have a full understanding, or at least as good of an understanding as possible of what they're getting and how the project's going to turn out. And I also understand that, we work with a huge range of people with different budgets and time capacity. And so you may not have a ton of time that you can put into it, but the more time that you can just spend being involved in the decisions, then I think that really lends itself to a successful project. Because you're right, we have had some where, during the design, it was going almost too smoothly, where, oh, yes, this all looks great, super excited. But then when, we got to the actual construction of it, oh, I didn't realize this door was going to go here. I didn't realize this looked like this. And, it's been in the drawings for months, and we try to walk everybody through. But so yeah, I think if you can really, the more you can take part in the project, the better it's going to turn out. So.
Budgets are, of course, critical to all of this.
Yes.
And I deal with budgets all the time. And so I've got a question for you on this topic, because, we're always trying to estimate what does it cost to maintain a house in an average year. If you're going to live there for 10 years, there's some amount of upkeep, and we're always trying to figure that out. And more recently, I've been trying to consider, for somebody who is going to live somewhere for 20 or 30 years, not only is there maintenance, but at some point you really need to remodel in order to maintain the potential value of your property relative to the properties around you.
Sure.
I'm curious, how long can a particular style kind of be relevant? Is it 10 years? Is it 20 years? What is your kind of instinct on that? What do you think?
Oh man, that's a good question. I think it depends on the style. And that is something, again, that we try to think about, and that we do get a lot of requests for, because we have people who come to us and say, look, I really like this look, but I don't want it to look like we built this in 2020, and like it's for like 5 to 10 years from now, people drive by the house and say, oh, I know when that house was built. We want it to be a more classic, enduring style that, could be, something that lasts for a long time. But generally, I think, I see I would think that the trends, and again, it depends on what you're talking about, like popular colors change every year, and so like every year the paint companies and the, even like fashion, obviously, but, will come out with, oh, these are the hot colors for this year. So that's also one of the things that I recommend. I have some clients who really want to put in this really bright colored tile backsplash in their kitchen or something like that. And I'll always say, are you going to get sick of looking at that in 2 years? Is that something that you really want to experience every day? And will it still be relevant for you, after this year? And so that's why when you incorporate color and stuff that may be more trendy into your home, I find it's much easier if you can do that. Even if it's with a paint, you can repaint. That's not as hard to do, or accessories. You can accessorize your neutral palette of a bathroom with, towels and bath mats and, other accessories that can kind of bring that pop of color that you're looking for. Because yeah, I think overarching, bigger design trends like styles of homes, like the modern farmhouse has been with us for a while now, but that's another one that everyone really loves, but they're nervous. Like, is it gonna, go out of style at some point, which it might, the finishes that you use for your bathroom or your kitchen hardware, like, a lot of the older homes you saw brass, and that became very unpopular for a long time. And it was all the silver colors, like, brushed nickel, polished chrome. Polished chrome has kind of been around forever, but and now brass is making a huge comeback. So it's fashion in a way with your home. And so I think that's a great question, because you do have to be careful. You want to think about what you're putting in there. Also, I tell people, if you love something, it's your house, it's your money, put in what you love, and I always try to guide them. If I think that there's one thing that is going to go out of trend very quickly, I'll try to give them a heads up. But also you have to, go with your gut and put in what you like. So.
Carina, I really enjoy your perspective on all of this. Thanks so much for doing this. How can people get in touch with you if they want to talk about their own project?
Oh, sure. Yeah. We have a website, restructurestudio.com. You can also email me, Carina, Carina, at restructurestudio.com. And then we just launched a sister company called Arbor Plans. So, Restructure Studio has been doing custom residential design in Austin for 10 years now, but we have also pre-made home plans if you have, which would be great for like an investment property, like if you wanted to build an accessory dwelling unit or ADU on your lot. Those plans are much less expensive and they're ready to go. And that's at arbor-plans.com. So.
Carina, thanks again. This has been fun.
Thanks, Kevin.
Take care.
You too.